Welcome to Kyle Anthony's UFC betting show. I am Kyle Anthony, and welcome to the podcast. Welcome to the Bet Review Show for UFC on ESPN Plus 11, Alexander Gustafsson versus Anthony Smith. We're going to talk about the play we have for purchase on Wagertalk. We're also going to talk about our two free plays that we have in this card, as well as the prop bet that we had for Anthony Joshua fight. We will get into that. Very curious to hear what you guys have to say about that fight as well. Although we are a UFC channel, wanted to get involved in the boxing, and crazy ending to that fight. So we will talk about that. First thing we're going to talk about is the free play between Alexander Rakic and Jimmy Manuwa. Now, we had Alexander Rakic in this one. We did get the victory here. And to go over this one, obviously, if you want to know my entire breakdown of this fight, you can check out my prediction video. That is on my channel. But to go over this fight, the big thing here with Jimmy Manuwa was going to be his chin. It was really going to be the age that he is, the chin factor that he's got, the glass jaw, and just overall that, he's got power, but, can he really withstand the shots when he moves forward and when he really looks to land those big, heavy shots that he's in his great boxing? But Rakic on the other side, it's a lot of question marks. This is a step up in competition for him. He's looked good in spots. And this was a spot here where, it was going to be, talking about his leg kicks and talk about a lot of his level-changing kicks. He goes out there and he lands a bomb right to the jaw, to the neck jaw of Jimmy Manuwa. Completely knocks him out cold, 47 seconds into the first round. He looks great. This is a spot here for Manuwa where he's lost some fights in a row. He's 3 fights that he lost in a row here. And if he lands a big one on Rakic, obviously that could be night also for him. This was going to be 2 guys going to really step into the middle and bang it out. And Rakic was the one to be able to land the big shot. So we did cash in on Alexander Rakic as one of our free plays. Now, I'm going over that one a little bit quicker because although we did win that one, I do want to talk about the main event. Now, this main event and my other play also were 2 very disappointing and confusing 2 fights here. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the other one is between Alexander Gustafsson and Anthony Smith. This was our other free play. We had Alexander Gustafsson. Anthony Smith ends up winning that fight. But to really break this one down, and the big thing here for me going into this fight was going to be that Alexander Gustafsson was really going to have a lot of great movement. He was really going to be able to drag Smith into deeper water, chip away at him, utilize that hand speed, utilize the fact that he's got a lot more weapons standing. Smith is very good, but his boxing and his power and the pressure that Smith is going to be able to put onto Gustafsson was possibly going to be tough for Gustafsson. But he really, I thought, for the first, the beginning of this fight, the first 3 rounds were really all Gustafsson. Gustafsson was landing shots and really working that leg kick. That was something I didn't really expect that he would really look to do too much to Smith. I thought that would be something more in the fight that we just talked about. So I thought that it would be part of his arsenal, but he really looked to pepper him up a little bit, but to bring him the deep water. That first round with Anthony Smith would be difficult because Smith, again, with that pressure, the power, and you saw in a couple spots he tried to, he made Gustafsson definitely a little bit uncomfortable in spots. But when you take a look at what happened, the first 3 rounds for Gustafsson to go out there and completely blow out Anthony Smith's leg in those first 3 rounds. He did such a great job continuing to hit it, continuing to move around the cage, and you could tell into that second round, you could already tell how much damage Smith was taking on that leg. He is tough as nails, and he was able to push through, but Gustafsson continued to work that leg, and that was a spot that I said, you know what, this is perfect. This is exactly what we want Alexander to do, as in just take his time. Don't rush into it. Don't look to all of a sudden exchange and have a toe-to-toe firefight. There's no need for that because that's what Smith wants. Smith wants you to stand in the middle of the trade, and if Gustafsson stays on his bike and moves around the cage and keeps that cage moving, works his angles, he looked great. And the confusing part of this is that Gustafsson had a perfect strategy for the first 3 rounds. Again, what he does, stay, move, stick and move, land a couple shots, pepper him, keep it moving, and drag this into later rounds where it's really going to be tiresome for Smith. And when Smith really, going to that 4th round, Smith looked I mean, he was hurt. I mean, his leg was hurt. He definitely wasn't able to really stand, or at least he was uncomfortable standing. I shouldn't say he couldn't stand, but you could tell he was hurting. And going into that fourth round, for Gustafsson to go for a takedown, I thought was just mind-boggling to what you're attempting to do for those other few rounds. So when you're really working somebody's leg, obviously I'm telling you guys something, not telling you guys something you don't know, but obviously when you're working the front leg, you're looking to, keep peppering that leg, keep him standing. That's really a big part of this, is keep him standing, because he's going to lose mobility. He's not going to have as much power. He's not going to be able to really leverage too much movement at all, really, when you're really able to knock out that front leg. So he does that perfectly, and he could have easily worked that strategy, I believe, in the next 2 rounds and gotten this victory on the judges' scorecards. At home, he gets the victory, end of story. But for him to go for that takedown, it gave Smith an opportunity to get his hands on Gustafsson. Gustafsson stumbles, he ends up getting his back. That's how Smith gets a victory. But I was so confused and so disappointed why he would go for that takedown there at that point where you could tell Smith was getting tired. So for him to go out there and do that, I thought it was a terrible move by Gustafsson. He was on his way to a victory. He had another round and a half just to kind of continue to do what he was doing, and there was really no answer for Smith. This is a position here where, when I'm wrong, and when I'm capping a fight, and, if I'm wrong, I want to know, was I on the right side or the wrong side? Win or lose, was it still the right play? And I still believe it is the right play. I know it was not the winner, but I really believe that this was a fight that was really a great spot for Gustafsson. He was beating him everywhere, and one stupid move, one lapse of judgment, cost him the fight. So Anthony Smith does get the victory as a plus 250, roughly, underdog. Big win for him. This guy's really looking to, get himself back into the title picture. So we'll see what happens there for him. So Anthony Smith does get the victory. And then the other one that we had was Sung Bin Jo versus Daniel Tamor. Now, this was a fight here for me that was the one where I definitely picked the wrong side, and this was not a winner. But we had Joe over Tamor. Tamor gets the victory. But the thing that when I'm capping a fight and I'm looking at past research and I'm going through all these things, I'm taking a look at a lot of things and trying to piece it together. And that's really the way I do it, is where is somebody else that can expose the other fighter, and really what can they leverage their tools against the other fighter. So when I'm going back and looking, and you see a lot from Joe, you really saw a lot that he was pushing forward. He's 9-0, 6 first round finishes. He, has great kickboxing, looks to exchange a lot, and with Tamor being a little bit more on the sloppier side of striking, he looks to brawl. He's 6-3 in the UFC, coming off 3 straight losses in the UFC. This was such a fight where I think that Joe really, it was a good stylistically matchup for him. Because again, if they're going to look to stand and trade in the middle, those exchanges, I really liked what I saw from Joe. Technically, he's a lot better than Tamor overall, in my opinion. But when he goes in there in this fight, and he really doesn't throw any strikes. I mean, it was the most confusing thing. Same thing with, Gustafsson, it was a lapse of judgment, I believe, on his part, where he should not have gone for the takedown, and that was a big mistake. Although he was out there and he was just out-pointing Smith in every angle. Here, I thought that if they were going to be looking to exchange, Joe was basically, the strikes that he was throwing were so weak. I was so confused of what he was doing there. So I did not understand going into that second round. He hardly threw strikes. Going into the third round, obviously he's down. He's hardly even has any sense of urgency, which was very confusing for a guy that has showed first round finishes out of most of his, out of his 9 wins, 6 of them come in the first round. So he's a go-getter. He's the kind of guy. And I loved the fact that these two would stand in the middle and trade, but the whole time Joe was backing up. Now you've got Daniel Tamor that really didn't have to do too much to get the victory, in all honesty. I mean, he won, no doubt, but he didn't have to do much. He didn't have to wow the crowd. When Joe is not throwing strikes, you don't really need to do much when you're walking a guy down the entire fight. So we did not get the victory there. I just do not understand. This guy, I believe that the UFC, you're not going to see him in the UFC. I think he's going to be done. I think they're going to look at him and say, this was your big shot, and you didn't do anything at all in a fight that they really were promoting as kind of like, this is going to be a barn burner opener for the main event, for the main card. So we do not get this victory. So Daniel Tamor does get that win. And then the last one we're going to talk about very quickly is Anthony Joshua. Now, this was a fight, Joshua being a minus 5,000. This was a fight that you're looking at and saying, you know what, this is, short notice for Ruiz. He definitely had no physical attributes that would over supersede Joshua, where he was much smaller, less reach, came in and on a very short notice. I think it was a couple weeks or whatever, maybe less than that. And for him to go into this fight and go out there, and you did see that Anthony Joshua, in the third round, he dropped Ruiz. That was the one where I said, fight's over. It's going to be right in that, because our bet was TKO, KO for Anthony Joshua at any point at about minus 420. And then we also had first 3 rounds, which was plus 390. So we had a lot of things there going on. And you know what, when he dropped him that was a big shot. That was a big shot. For Ruiz to get up from that, I would say 90% of fighters are not getting up from that first shot that Joshua landed. And that first knockdown that Joshua had. He dropped him with a big hook, and I thought that was it. Even when he got up, I'm thinking he's gonna put the stamp on this, and we're gonna talk about a Wilder Joshua fight coming up soon. And then just going in for the kill, I think that a lot of that had to do with Ruiz. I think the fact that he was, he had nothing to lose, and he had that mentality in press conferences, and in, I'm happy to be here. I'm just gonna go out there and brawl. And he was a tough Mexican fighter. He took it on the chin and then kept going forward. And I think Joshua was shocked. I think it was almost like, wow, he's coming after me still. And then he got clipped. And after that, getting clipped in that third round, Joshua did not look the same. He looked tired. It looked like a fatigue thing more than a beat-up thing. He was definitely dropping, but, these were good shots by Ruiz, without a doubt. But just confusing, and the fact that he would go out there and not look to, he would look to, obviously you want to finish him, but you want to at least be smart in there. So he went out there and could not get the finish, and then let himself exposed. Big shot for him. Ruiz gets the victory in the 7th round, or 6th or 7th round. Unbelievable. It's probably one of the biggest upsets next to Buster Douglas and Mike Tyson. So that was a crazy one there. Did not, look like it was going to go our way in that 3rd round. He was going to get the knockout. Does not get the knockout victory. So we will move on to the next event. Next event, UFC 238. Great fights there. The card is stacked. A lot of exciting fights to talk about. We will have that video out on Thursday. I will definitely post a link on my Twitter at Kyle Anthony UFC. And what I'm going to be doing on Twitter is posting on Wednesday. I will be posting the video and the show that me and Dan Tom are doing from MMA Junkie. We will have that there on Twitter. So definitely get involved, like, subscribe. I appreciate all the support. Let me know what you guys think about this Anthony Joshua fight, which is just utterly absurd. We'll talk about that as well down in the comments section. And I will see you Thursday on the prediction show for UFC 238. See you next time.